Did you know that an estimated 0.1% of US adults have had some type of anxiety disorder in the past year? And it's becoming more and more common throughout the years. The most common causes for anxiety is fear, worry, stress, angst. This can be experienced in multiple ways, like having trouble sleeping, fatigue, or feeling like the world is speeding up a little bit too much or slowing down a little too much. Now, if you've experienced stress and anxiety, then you're most likely have a bigger chance of having some type of stomach issue like IBS, acid reflux, gastritis, gerd. And this is all because there's a clear connection between the brain and the gut, called the brain and gut axis, that is connected by the vagus nerve. The way I like to think about it is whenever you get really nervous, you get kind of like the stomach rumbles, or you get excited, like super excited, and you feel it in your stomach. You have to sometimes go to the bathroom because you're just so nervous or excited. It's clear that there is a connection, and it can be the same with stress and anxiety and worry. It can cause for you to contract those muscles and make them stressed. A lot of times that sometimes creates hiatal hernias, which can slow down your digestion, create some acid reflux symptoms, and overall disrupt the way that you are living. The exposure to stress impacts the motor activity of your colon, so the way that your colon is working, which can alter the bacteria profiles in your stomach. So what that means is that instead of having a balance between good and bad bacteria, you're more likely to have a dysbiosis, which means that you have a higher count of bad bacteria than good bacteria. When you have a higher count of bad bacteria, you have a lower count of Lactobacillus bacteria. Lactobacillus is really good for your gut because it can help you break down food and fight off bad organisms that enter your body like toxins, and it can also help you absorb nutrients. So when you're missing that good bacteria like Lactobacillus, you're more likely to get sick more often, you're more likely to have a harder time digesting, you're more likely to catch a virus quicker. And there are tons of resources, articles, and information and studies about how anxiety and the gut can have a clear connection and how your brain and your thoughts can easily create these stomach issues. So now that I've thrown all this information at you, I really want to give you some type of resource. So in this video, I'm going to show you 5 stress and anxiety tips for better digestion. Number 1 is melatonin. It's an important mediator of brain-gut axis, so that means that it can have protective effects to the gastrointestinal tract. Also, as we know, a lot of people take melatonin at night, which makes a lot of sense because it really relaxes your muscles, including your stomach muscles. I have a habit of contracting my stomach muscles whenever I feel stressed, and sometimes I don't notice. Actually, most of the time I don't notice. But when you're self-aware and you're really able to look at your body and try to see what is making you have these symptoms, sometimes it really comes down to what you're thinking about, and it also can come down to the stories that you tell yourself. So if you're always telling yourself that you are not good enough and you're always keeping it negative, then it can also really impact the way you build up stress. Number 2 is focusing on your breathing. Now, this can be a little bit hard when you're out in public, but one of my favorite exercises that I have learned is actually from Miley Cyrus. I saw this in one episode from a show a long time ago, but it was pretty much her explaining that her therapist told her this really easy breathing mechanism for stress and anxiety whenever she's feeling like in a little bit of an altered state. So what she pretty much does is she holds one nostril down with her finger, and she tries to do a couple breath counts with the opposite nostril. So if I'm doing my right, or what you can do is you can alternate. You start with this one, and it really just brings you down and relaxes you. Another one that I really like is also one that I saw for hiatal hernia. If you happen to have a hernia or an ulcer, this really helps you out. You pretty much just put your arms up and you lean to one side, and you do a couple breath counts within it. You can do around 5, and then you move on to the other side, and that really helps me as well. This probably looks a little weird for a couple of people because they're not used to it or whatnot, but another one that I kind of made up myself that really works for me is I also hold that left nostril, but I add some type of movement to it. I don't know why, there's something about it. So I hold my nostril, and then I put my arm up, and then as I'm breathing in, and then I'm starting to breathe out. For some reason, that really helps me out. So obviously you can play with different types of breathing techniques and breathing exercises. If you're into meditation, that can also help you out a lot. However, I do know that a lot of people have issues and trouble sometimes focusing when it comes to meditation. So Breathing exercises are amazing because you're just focusing on your breath and you have something to focus on. Another thing that I do want to know is that whenever you're using these types of breathing mechanisms or breathing exercises, it's best to do it before you eat, because that's when you really want to be relaxed and you want your body to be at a good state in order to take in the nutrients and absorb it. You don't want to be stressed watching the news on the TV, putting on a YouTube video on the next phone, listening to music somewhere else as you're eating, because that can really subconsciously affect the way that you will digest your food. And with that, that takes me to my next tip number 3, which is to self-evaluate. Self-evaluate the way that you feel whenever you're eating certain foods, because that's how you're able to find your trigger foods and also the foods that make you feel good overall. If you're eating with distractions, there's no way that you will be able to tell what is working and what is not. Self-evaluate and see how you feel maybe like 30 minutes after a meal, maybe directly after a meal. Do you get acid reflux right away? And use that to your advantage. So if you notice this pattern of like constant acid reflux after lunch maybe, and you notice that also after lunch you're sitting down or you're laying down and you get that same acid reflux or the same symptoms, it could be that maybe you need a 5-minute walk after lunch, or maybe you need to stand for a little bit before actually taking in work, or you can, if you have a stand-up desk, you can use the stand-up desk. It's all about putting the least stress possible on your gut in order for it to heal within that 2 to 3 month time span, so that it's able to come back to normal and you're able to eat the foods that you love and have prime digestion. Tip number 4 is check if you have any vitamin deficiencies. Back when I was a vegan a couple years ago, I had a very heavy or low deficiency in vitamin B12 because I wasn't eating any red meat or anything that had high amounts of vitamin B12. And it took me a while to realize this and to self-evaluate and realize that I had a lot of mood changes because of like the lack of B12. My fatigue was like at an all-time high. I was always really tired and just I felt overworked. So check if you have any deficiencies, because that can really help you out. Because when I realized that B12 was a huge part of developing your nerve cells and your brain cells, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I've been feeling like this whole time, because I was missing those nutrients. Tip number 5 is creating boundaries. Now this personally took me quite a while to realize how important this was, because I was always a yes person, especially as a young adult. I always wanted to be part of every opportunity I can have. I always wanted to say yes to everyone, to please everyone, even though it didn't fit me or fit my schedule. I always said yes, and that is something that a lot of people don't realize, that they're not creating boundaries with whatever it is, with work, with life, with friendships, with relationships, whatever it is. You're not creating boundaries, so that can often overwhelm you and you're taking in a little bit too much for you to handle, which can ultimately hurt your progress in your digestion journey. And also make sure that as you're creating boundaries, you find something for yourself to do. So if you deny doing something with a friend or whatever, and now you have that free time, make sure that you fill it with a new hobby, or you fill it with something, with rest, that you have a plan for it. Because when you don't have a plan for it, sometimes it doesn't feel like actual time off for you. So whether it's reading a new book, or whether it's going out for a hike, or whatever it is, cooking a new recipe and just doing it on your own, doing it calm and collected. In college, I lived a very, very fast life, and I never realized the blessings and the mistakes that I was making. So it felt like I was never really fully learning as much as I should have. And like I said before, I was always a yes man. I was always a yes girl. And instead of helping me and helping me with my opportunities, it really just hindered me and stressed me out way too much, which ultimately has caused a lot of issues with my stomach. So now that I've gotten a little bit more vulnerable, I wanted to end this video and tell you guys thank you so much for watching all my videos. Just know that whatever I find, whatever resource I find for myself, I will share with you, because why would I ever gatekeep this stuff? I don't know. That's all I have for this video. I'm just gonna keep talking and talking. I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.